When I was 10, my dad died in an accident. Then the lawyer asked me a choice: stay with my mother, or take the 200 million my father had left behind. In my previous life, I cried and begged for my mom, but she took my dad's compensation money and before long married old Wang next door. Well, not old Wang, Uncle Zhao. I became the unwanted baggage in their new family. In the end, I was worked to death on a construction site. I was only 28 when I died. Looking back on that pathetic, ridiculous life, I really had been stupid beyond saving. And now, I was standing at that crossroads again. The woman in front of me was crying her eyes out. Her body had gone limp, like she might collapse at any second if someone beside her wasn't holding her up. In my past life, I fell for that act. I thought she was devastated. I thought she couldn't live without me. So I threw myself at her, wrapped my arms around her legs and cried that I wanted to stay with her. And what happened? She took the money my dad had died for, then happily remarried less than 3 months later, to Zhao Qiang, the man she always claimed had been taking care of us. My dad's ashes hadn't even cooled before that man moved into our home and slept in the new bed my dad had once slept in. And me? I became the extra one, the eyesore, the burden they wished didn't exist. Zhao Qiang had a son 2 years older than me. He treated me like a thorn in his side. To please her stepson, Lilan beat and cursed at me without mercy. The money my father left behind became the family's spending fund, their money for food, drinks, fun, and my stepbrother's flashy lifestyle and girlfriends. Meanwhile, I had to collect scraps just to scrape together my tuition. I didn't even finish high school before they kicked me out and made me work, claiming boys needed to become independent early. I carried bricks on construction sites for 10 whole years. Then one day, exhausted beyond my limit, I collapsed face first onto a pile of burning hot rebar, and I never woke up. But now, I was back. Lilan pulled me into her arms. Xiao Yi, don't be scared. Mom will take good care of you from now on. Her tears and snot smeared all over my face. But deep in her eyes, something else was hiding. An urgency and greed so faint most people wouldn't notice it. This time, I didn't cry or make a scene. I just stood there quietly, watching her perform. Then one of my father's old friends walked over. He was also my father's lawyer, Uncle Joe. With a heavy sigh, Lawyer Joe patted my shoulder and took a document from his briefcase. Li Lan, Xiao Yi, he said, his voice unusually grave. This is the will Brother Ning made before he passed away. Brother Ning considered every possibility. He had 200 million in assets under his name, all legally notarized. Now, there are two options. First, if Xiao Yi stays with you, this money will be given to you as compensation and child support, to manage until Xiao Yi becomes an adult. The moment she heard that, Lilan's breathing quickened. A frightening light flashed in her eyes as she stared at the will. Second, if Xiao Yi chooses not to stay with you, the money will be transferred into a trust fund under my supervision. Xiao Yi will have sole control over it. Lilan, you will not receive a single cent. The air seemed to freeze. Everyone's eyes turned toward me, the 10-year-old child standing in the middle of the funeral hall. Lilan's body stiffened. She stared at Lawyer Joe in disbelief, as if silently demanding how he could even offer such a choice. Then, just as quickly, she put on a heartbroken expression and hugged me tightly. Lawyer Joe, how can you say something like that? She wailed. How could I ever abandon my son? Xiao Yi is my life. As she cried, she pinched my arm hard and whispered viciously into my ear. Ningyi, if you dare say anything stupid, I'll beat you to death. You're my son. Your money is my money. In my previous life, that threat had made me tremble. And when she said, Mom can't live without you, I'd actually been moved. But now, all I felt was disgust. I could feel the hand pinching me shaking, not from grief, from excitement and nerves. 200 million. She'd never seen that kind of money in her life. She was already imagining what she'd do after getting it, imagining her happy little future with Zhao Qiang. Slowly, I pulled myself free from her suffocating embrace. Then I looked up into Lawyer Joe's stunned eyes and spoke clearly, one word at a time. Uncle Joe, I choose the second option. I choose the 200 million. The entire funeral hall went dead silent. You could have heard a needle hit the floor. Everyone stood frozen, staring at me like someone had pressed pause on the whole room. The grief on Lilan's face instantly locked in place, then cracked apart piece by piece, turning into disbelief and rage. What did you say, Ningyi? She shrieked, her voice sharp enough to pierce people's ears. I repeated myself calmly. My voice wasn't loud, but every word hit like a nail. I said I don't want you. I want the money. You've lost your mind, Lilan screamed. You ungrateful brat! I'm your real mother! She completely snapped and lunged at me, raising her hand to slap me. But a large hand caught her wrist. It was Lawyer Joe. His face darkened. Lilan, calm down. This is Brother Ning's funeral hall, and this is Xiao Yi's choice. What does a child know? Lilan shouted. You must have coached him. Lawyer Joe shoved her hand away in disgust. I'll say it one more time. This is Brother Ning's legally binding will. Since Xiao Yi has made his choice, I'll begin the procedures immediately. From this moment on, you are no longer his legal guardian. Lilan went completely blank. She looked at me with resentment and unwillingness, as if I were an enemy she could never coexist with. She probably couldn't understand how her obedient, cowardly son had suddenly become so cold and unfamiliar. I couldn't be bothered with her anymore. I walked over to Lawyer Joe, tugged lightly on his sleeve, and asked, "Uncle Joe, did my dad know all along?" Lawyer Joe's body jolted. He crouched down, looked me seriously in the eyes, then nodded with a pained expression. "Your dad was a smart man," he said, "and he loved you very much." My eyes immediately turned red. Of course, my dad was too smart not to see Leland for who she really was. He'd only kept quiet because he wanted me to have a complete family, but when he found out he had a terminal illness and didn't have much time left, he made sure to prepare a way out for me. In my previous life, I'd been too stupid. I'd destroyed the last gift of love my father had left me with my own hands. But not this time. This time, I wouldn't make the same mistake. Leland was eventually dragged away by our relatives. The hatred in her eyes as she left stayed carved into my memory for the rest of my life, but I didn't care. The second I made that choice, whatever mother-son bond existed between us was over. All that remained was hatred. Lawyer Joe became my legal guardian. He was honest, dependable, and trustworthy. After my father's funeral, he brought me to live at his house. One day, he showed me a long list of investments. They were all projects he and my father had researched before Dad died, but I flipped straight to the final page. "Uncle Joe, sell everything on the earlier pages." He stared at me in shock. Then I pointed at a few names that looked completely unremarkable on the list. "Put all the money into these companies." Lawyer Joe frowned. "Tencent? Alibaba? What kind of companies are these? I've never even heard of them. Xiao Yi, investing isn't child's play." "Uncle Joe?" I asked. "Do you trust my dad?" He paused, then nodded. "Of course I do." "Then trust me this once too. My dad told me in a dream. It was a terrible excuse, but it was the only one I had." Lawyer Joe looked into my eyes far too calm for a 10-year-old, and somehow, he nodded. What he didn't know was that the companies I had picked would shake the entire world over the next decade and become some of the biggest commercial giants on the planet, and I would become their most mysterious shareholder. After sorting all that out, I finally relaxed. Then I set a brand new goal for my life: to take it easy. Yep, to lie flat and enjoy life. I'd worked myself to death in my last life. This time I wanted to live comfortably. I asked Lawyer Joe to get me into the best private school. Not so I could study myself half to death, but because the environment was nice and the cafeteria food was good. I started working out. Not for any grand reason. I just wanted 8-pack abs and a nice V-line someday, so clothes would look better on me. I began studying China's 8 great culinary traditions and learning to brew alcohol. Not because I wanted to become a chef, but because I liked eating and drinking well. I dumped every troublesome matter on Lawyer Joe. Later, I dumped them on the professional team he helped build for me. The man in charge was Old Wu, an elite who had returned from Wall Street. I poached him with 3 times his previous salary. I only had one requirement. "Don't bother me, handle things yourselves. If you can't handle it, make them go bankrupt." The way Old Wu looked at me back then was like he was staring at the spoiled, useless son of some rich landlord. Still, he carried out my instructions faithfully. And so, my life became this. "Boss, Tencent's stock price tripled again. We made $5 billion. Got it. Don't interrupt me. I'm researching how to make shrimp paste. Boss, Alibaba is about to go public. Our original shares are expected to be worth more than $100 billion. Got it. Help me taste this new batch of yellow rice wine I brewed. That piece of land you casually bought has been designated as the central business district of a new development zone. Its value has increased 100-fold. Old Wu gradually got used to my laid-back lifestyle. He even started filtering out those unimportant deals, only worth tens of billions before they reached me. Meanwhile, I went further and further down the path of doing absolutely nothing. My wealth grew like a snowball rolling downhill, getting bigger and crazier by the day. But I became numb to numbers. The only thing I cared about was how to make my life more comfortable. I became a mysterious legend among the world's richest people. No one knew who I was. They only knew there was a mysterious Mr. Ning, rich enough to rival a nation, yet impossible to find. Then, when I turned 18, a woman appeared and shattered my peaceful, lazy life. Xiao Wanqing, my former fiancée. Our engagement had been arranged by our grandfathers when we were children. After my dad died, my family fell apart, and no one mentioned the engagement again. But no one expected the inheritance my father left behind to grow, over 10 years, into a massive business empire. I kept a low profile on purpose, but the Ning family's return still caught the Xiao family's attention. So, on my 18th birthday, Old Master Xiao personally came to visit with his precious granddaughter. Officially, they were there to honor the old engagement. The first time I met Xiao Wanqing was in Lawyer Joe's living room. She wore a neat white skirt suit. Her long hair was pinned perfectly behind her head, and her light makeup was flawless. She was undeniably beautiful, but she felt like an iceberg. Her whole body seemed to radiate a coldness that kept strangers away. She was exactly the kind of powerful businesswoman people imagined. Raised as the family heir, she was rational, strong, and calm. Rumor had it she earned 2 doctorate degrees by 20, took over the family business at 22, and used such ruthless methods that even old foxes in the business world feared her. Her world contained only career, profits, and data. To her, emotions were the most useless weakness of all. She sat across from me with her legs crossed, her gaze scanning me like a machine, openly judging me. I had just gotten back from working out. I was wearing loose sportswear, my hair still damp with sweat. I gave a lazy little response, leaned back on the couch, grabbed an apple, and took a bite. My attitude clearly annoyed her. She furrowed her brow slightly. I heard you stopped studying after graduating from high school. Studying's exhausting. Then what do you do now? Work out, cook, brew wine, figure out how to lie around more comfortably. I told her the truth. The corner of Xiao Wanqing's mouth lifted in mockery. So you're just an idle rich kid with nothing better to do. You could put it that way. I shrugged, unconcerned. She let out a cold laugh, and the contempt in her eyes deepened. Ningyi, let's be honest. This engagement was just a joke between our grandfathers. It shouldn't be taken seriously. My husband must be a strong man who can stand beside me as an equal, not some useless bum who only knows how to eat, drink, and have fun. And I looked at her with interest. So I hope you'll take the initiative and tell my grandfather to cancel the engagement. She said it like an order. As compensation, I can give you some money, or I can arrange an easy position for you in our company. I nearly spat out my apple. Give me money? Arrange a job for me? Did she know that the Xiao group she was so proud of wasn't even worth a fraction of what I owned? Watching her act so superior, I suddenly found the whole thing kind of funny. In my previous life, I hadn't even been qualified to meet her. In this life, she was sitting right in front of me, speaking as though offering me charity. I wiped my mouth and smiled. Sure. She regained her icy expression. What compensation do you want? I don't want money, and I don't want a job. I stood up, walked over to her, and leaned close to her ear. She instinctively tried to pull back, but her body stiffened. I could smell the cool, crisp scent of her perfume. Lowering my voice so only she could hear, I said, I want you to personally tell your grandfather that you, Xiao Wanqing, aren't good enough for me, Ningyi. Xiao Wanqing's pupils contracted sharply. She had probably never heard anything so arrogant in her entire life. She shoved me away and stood up. Her pretty face turned red with rage. Ningyi, don't push your luck. Your face is something you earn yourself, I said, sitting back down and crossing my legs. It's not something other people give you. Miss Xiao, you were the one who looked down on me first. Wasn't that right? She looked down at me. What can someone like you do besides be born into a good family? You waste your days doing nothing, eating and waiting to die. What's the difference between you and a parasite? The difference is, I enjoy it. I spread my hands. My life, my choice. Unlike some people who live like precision machines and have to calculate every gain and loss before they can even feel happy or angry. My words clearly hit a sore spot. Her face turned a little pale as she clenched her fists. We're not the same kind of people. There's nothing more to say. I'll have the engagement cancelled. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. With that, she turned around and left without looking back. Her proud figure looked like a defeated white swan that still refused to lower its head. Lawyer Zhou walked out of his study, looking worried. Xiaoyi, wasn't that a little too impulsive? The Xiao family has a lot of influence in the capital. Uncle Zhou, relax. She's the one who wanted to break off the engagement. It's not like I kicked her out. Besides, someone who couldn't even control her own marriage. In my previous life, she had been the bright moon hanging high in the sky, someone I wasn't even qualified to look up at. But in this life, she was just a pitiful person trapped by her family. I was looking forward to seeing the expression on her face when she finally broke down. That would be interesting. The engagement drama settled down quickly. Xiao Wanqing kept her word. Within days, the Xiao family formally announced that the engagement had been cancelled. I was happy to have my peace back and continued living my easygoing life. Old Wu's calls still came on schedule every day, reporting how many more billions I'd made. My personal wealth had already inflated to a terrifying number I couldn't even be bothered to calculate. Yet I still wore cheap workout clothes every day and drove an ordinary car between the gym and the local market. Then one day, I met an angel in a dessert shop that was about to go out of business. It was hidden deep in an alley in the old part of town. The shop was tiny, decorated in an old-fashioned style, and sold traditional Chinese desserts that were nearly forgotten. A handwritten wooden sign outside caught my attention. Today's special, osmanthus, sugar-steamed rice flour cake. It was the dessert my dad had loved making for me when I was little. I pushed open the door, and a wind chime rang softly. A girl in a pale blue qipao came out from the back kitchen. Her long hair fell all the way to her waist. She wore no makeup, and there was a slight look of surprise on her face, as though I'd interrupted her. The second I saw her, my heart skipped a beat. It was a strange feeling. She wasn't beautiful in the sharp, aggressive way Xiao Wanqing was. She was more like a clear spring, clean, pure, and comforting to look at. Excuse me, I asked, my voice strangely dry. Do you still have any osmanthus sugar-steamed rice flour cake? She froze for a second, then smiled gently. Her smile was like a spring breeze brushing across a lake, sending soft ripples through the water. We do. Please have a seat. I'll bring some out for you. Her voice was lovely too, soft and sweet. I sat down by the window. Soon she brought over a delicate plate of cakes and set it in front of me. The cakes were shaped like little plum blossoms, topped with glistening osmanthus sugar, and smelled wonderfully sweet. I picked one up and put it in my mouth. That was it. It tasted exactly like the ones my dad used to make. Warmth rose from deep inside me, and my eyes actually started to sting. How is it? Is it good? The girl asked as she sat across from me, resting her chin in her hands and watching me expectantly. It tastes exactly like what my dad used to make, I said sincerely. Really? Her eyes lit up. My grandmother passed down the recipe. She said hardly anyone knows how to make it anymore. Then your grandmother must have been amazing. She proudly lifted her little chin. She was. My name is Shen Yuchu. This shop is mine. I'm Ning Yi. We started talking like we had known each other for years. I learned that her family had a long history in the culinary world. Her ancestors had been imperial chefs, and she had grown up surrounded by traditional cooking. She didn't like the 9-to-5 life at a big company, so she opened this little shop to preserve these beautiful old flavors. Her values were surprisingly similar to mine. We both liked a slower pace of life. We both had an almost stubborn love for traditional culture. That afternoon, I sat in that tiny dessert shop and talked with her for a very long time. Sunlight streamed through the curtains and fell over her, wrapping her in a golden glow. As I watched her bright eyes sparkle when she talked, and caught those adorable smiles that appeared when she wasn't paying attention, something inside me felt full. For the first time, the heart that had grown old and hard after being reborn began to soften again. From that day on, Shen Yuchu's dessert shop became my personal base. I went there every day without fail. Sometimes I went to try a dessert she had invented. Sometimes I went for tea she made herself. More often than not, I just sat there quietly and watched her work. She was busy. She ran the whole store by herself, preparing ingredients, making desserts, serving guests, cleaning up, but she never complained. Her face always carried a contented smile. I started helping her. At first I washed dishes, then I helped prepare vegetables. Later she even let me into her back kitchen to watch her make desserts. Her kitchen was small, but everything was kept neat and organized. Every tool sat exactly where it belonged. When she worked, she was completely focused, like a devoted artist. Watching her delicate hands turn ordinary ingredients into little works of art was its own kind of pleasure. One day, I was helping her carry a heavy bag of flour. I had just come back from the gym and was wearing only a tight, athletic tank top. Shen Yuchu stood behind me, looking at the muscles flexing from the effort. Her cheeks turned a little pink. Ning Yi, she said softly, you have such a nice body. I put down the bag and deliberately puffed out my chest. Want to feel it? I thought she would get embarrassed and run away. Instead, she actually reached out. Her fingertips were cool and carried the faint sweet scent of glutinous rice. She gently poked the grooves between my abs. They're so hard, she said, her eyes wide like she had discovered a whole new world. My entire body tensed. Heat shot straight from my stomach to my head. I had lived 2 lives, and this was the first time a girl had flirted with me like that. Seeing how innocent and curious she looked, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I caught her naughty little hand. It was soft, almost boneless. I lowered my voice and leaned close to her ear. Her face instantly turned red like a ripe apple. She yanked her hand back and ran out of the kitchen. I watched her flee and couldn't help laughing. She was way too adorable. Our relationship slowly warmed through those ordinary days together. We never ran out of things to talk about. From food and brewing wine to kunku opera and the guqin, I discovered that Shen Yuchu was like a hidden treasure, always bringing me new surprises. She could play the guzheng, paint ink-wash paintings, and even make rouge herself. She was like a girl who had traveled here from ancient times, carrying a classical elegance in everything she did. Whenever I was with her, it felt as if the whole world slowed down and became peaceful and beautiful. My heart, which had only wanted to take it easy, began to stir. I started looking forward to seeing her every day, looking forward to her smile, our little arguments, and all those unconscious things she did that made my heart race. I even started thinking that having her by my side every day in the future might not be so bad. I gave her dessert shop a special nickname, my Imperial Kitchen, and she gave me one too. The lazy landlord. She said I did nothing all day except come to her shop to collect rent by taking all the best desserts she made. I knew there was only one thin layer of paper left between us, and what finally tore through that layer was an accident. One day, a rich second-generation kid in a sports car came into the shop and immediately set his sights on Shen Yuchu. His hair was slicked back, his face looked overly polished, and he spoke in a sleazy, disrespectful way. The moment he walked in, he said he wanted to rent out the whole shop and have Shen Yuchu keep him company. Of course, Shen Yuchu refused. The guy got angry and began causing trouble, smashing several things in the store. I happened to be in the back kitchen working on a new recipe. The second I heard the noise, I rushed outside. The shop was a mess, and Shen Yuchu's little face had gone white with fear. A nameless rage exploded inside me. I had never been this angry in either of my lives. I stepped in front of Shen Yuchu and stared coldly at the rich kid. Get out! Who the hell are you? He snapped, pointing in my face. Why are you sticking your nose into my business? I didn't answer. I simply took out my phone and called Old Wu. Old Wu, check this license plate. Within 5 minutes, make him and his family's company disappear from the capital. The rich kid froze for a moment, then burst out laughing. You've got to be kidding me. You think you're in a movie? 5 minutes and my family disappears? Do you even know who my dad is? I just looked at him quietly, like I was looking at a dead man. Less than 3 minutes later, his phone rang. He picked it up, and the smile on his face instantly vanished. What? What did you say? The company accounts have been frozen? Every partnership has been cancelled? How is that possible? Who did we offend? His voice shook with terror. Then, with a thud, he dropped to his knees. His phone slipped from his hand. He looked up at me as though he were seeing a monster. His lips trembled, but he couldn't force out a single word. Can you get out now? I asked calmly. He scrambled away in a panic, so terrified that he even left his flashy sports car behind. The shop became quiet again. Shen Yuchu looked at me, her beautiful eyes full of shock and a little admiration. You... I turned to her and gently wiped away the tears on her face. Don't be scared. I'm here. Then, before she could react, I lowered my head and kissed her cool lips. Shen Yuchu's lips were just as soft as I'd imagined, carrying the light sweetness of osmanthus sugar. At first, she froze like a startled deer. Then, slowly and awkwardly, she began to respond. The kiss was gentle and brief, but it felt like an electric current had struck my heart. After a long moment, I reluctantly pulled away. She lowered her head, her face red enough to drip blood. She didn't dare look at me. Shen Yuchu. I held her face in my hands and made her look into my eyes. Will you be my girlfriend? She bit her lip, her long lashes trembling like butterfly wings. After a long while, she gave a tiny hum of agreement, so quiet it was almost like a mosquito buzzing. I smiled like an idiot and pulled her tightly into my arms. It felt like I had the whole world. After living 2 lives, I finally understood what it meant for your heart to race, what happiness really was. Muffled against my chest, she said, You were really scary just now. Did I scare you? With one phone call, you made a company go bankrupt. Ning Yi, who are you really? I looked into her clear, innocent eyes and knew I couldn't hide it from her anymore. Didn't I tell you? I said, lightly tapping her nose. I'm a lazy landlord. I just own a little more land than most people. I told her part of my story. Of course, I didn't tell her about being reborn. I only said that my father had left me a large inheritance, and that I had made some investments with it and earned a little money. Shen Yuchu blinked. A little money? How little can a little money be if you can make a company go bankrupt in 5 minutes? I thought for a moment, then explained it in a way she could understand. Maybe enough to buy tens of thousands of dessert shops like yours. Shen Yuchu sucked in a sharp breath. She counted on her fingers for a long time, then looked at me in complete shock. You're a billionaire? I nodded. She fell silent. I felt a little nervous. I was afraid the enormous gap between us would make her pull away from me. But after staying quiet for a long time, she suddenly looked up. She suddenly looked up at me with a serious expression. Ning Yi, listen carefully. From now on, your money is my money, and my money is still my money. I froze for a second, then burst out laughing. I picked her up and spun her around several times. Fine, whatever you say, director of my imperial kitchen. She got so dizzy that all she could do was wrap her arms around my neck and laugh like a silver bell. That was when I knew I hadn't chosen wrong. What I loved was Shen Yuchu herself, not whatever rich family status people might think came with being with me. After getting together with Shen Yuchu, my laid-back life became much more colorful. We developed new desserts together and brewed new wines together. She would drag me to the morning market, where she'd argue with vendors until her face turned red over a few cents, and I would take her to 3-star Michelin restaurants so she could try food from all over the world. She liked touching my abs, saying they felt nice, like a washboard. I liked kissing her collarbone and watching her cheeks flush whenever I got too close. Like every couple madly in love, we were sweet and clingy. Old Wu claimed he was being stuffed to death by all the couple content. Boss, this is the acquisition proposal for Huanyu Group. It needs your signature. Put it there. I need to make you choose some chilled pear soup first. Boss, this is an invitation to a banquet hosted by European royalty. Decline it. I'm taking Yuchu to see a new movie. Boss, President Xiao from the Xiao Group wants to meet you to discuss a partnership. When Old Wu mentioned President Xiao, he carefully glanced at me. My hand paused. I hadn't heard the name Xiao Wanqing in a long time. What does she want? I asked flatly. Old Wu explained. The Xiao Group has had problems with its cash flow recently. They urgently need a major investment. They heard about Yifan Shunfeng and want to discuss a partnership. Yifan Shunfeng was the investment company I had asked Old Wu to establish. It was one of the smallest corners of my business empire, But even that tiny corner was a giant the Xiao group had to look up to. Funny how things turned around. The ice-cold CEO who once stood above me and said I wasn't good enough for her now had to come begging me for investment. A faint, amused smile appeared on my face. Tell her she can come if she wants to talk. But she has to come to my imperial kitchen herself. My imperial kitchen was Yuchu's dessert shop. Old Wu looked confused. Tell her to bring her proposal. I want to see how sincere she is. I really wanted to see Xiao Wanqing's face when she saw Shen Yuchu and me together. When she saw the useless loser she once despised had become someone she had no choice but to look up to. The more I thought about it, the more I looked forward to it. When Xiao Wanqing arrived, I was in the back kitchen making Shen Yuchu's favorite crab roe soup dumplings. I wore a white chef's jacket with an apron tied around my waist, and my hands were still dusted with flour. Shen Yuchu was hugging me from behind like a little cat, her chin resting on my shoulder. She stole bites of the freshly steamed crab roe while giving me instructions. These folds aren't pretty. The soup is going to leak out, dummy. This one barely passes. Your head chef approves. I let her mess around, occasionally turning my head to kiss her cheek. The kitchen was filled with the smell of food and the sweetness between us. That was exactly when Xiao Wanqing pushed the door open. She wore a black business suit, her hair as perfectly neat as ever. Her face carried exhaustion and anxiety, though she was still trying hard to maintain that icy CEO image. But when she saw the scene in front of her, she froze. She probably never imagined that the mysterious, all-powerful owner behind Yifan Shunfeng would be the loser she had looked down on, and what she likely found even harder to accept was that this loser was standing in a tiny dessert shop kitchen, wearing an apron, and personally making food for a girl. That girl was holding on to me intimately, as if openly declaring that I belonged to her. Xiao Wanqing's face instantly turned pale. Her calm, rational eyes filled with shock, confusion, and a trace of embarrassment she probably hadn't even noticed herself. President Xiao, you're here. I acted as if I'd only just seen her. I wiped my hands, untied my apron, and greeted her casually. Shen Yuchu peeked out from behind me and studied Xiao Wanqing curiously. Then she quietly asked, Ning Yi, who is she? She looks kind of scary. Someone here to beg for food, I said with a smile, pinching her nose. Shen Yuchu couldn't hold back a laugh. Xiao Wanqing's face shifted from white to green, then from green to red. It was quite a show. She clenched her fists so hard that her nails dug into her palms. Ning Yi, don't go too far, she forced out through gritted teeth. Too far? I raised an eyebrow. President Xiao, if I remember right, you were the one who said we had nothing to do with each other. Now you've come looking for me yourself. If you're not here to beg, what are you here for? I took Shen Yuchu outside and sat down at a table with her. I placed a basket of steaming soup dumplings in front of her. Try them. They just came out. Only then did I slowly turn back to Xiao Wanqing and gesture toward a chair. President Xiao, sit. Tell me what you need. My attitude was casual, almost dismissive, like I was dealing with someone completely unimportant. This wasn't anything like the business negotiation she had imagined. There was no fierce confrontation, no battle of words. There was only crushing superiority, blatant, complete, and undeniable. Xiao Wanqing took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down. She pulled out a chair across from me, then took a thick document from her bag and pushed it over. Mr. Ning, this is the Xiao Group's 5-year development plan, along with our financing proposal. I hope— Stop! I raised a hand, cutting her off. President Xiao, I think you have something confused. You're the one asking me for help. I'm not asking you for anything. I leaned back in my chair and spoke slowly. I'm not interested in your plan. I only want to ask you one question. I pointed at Shen Yuchu beside me, then at myself. Do you think she and I are a good match? Xiao Wanqing's body trembled. She looked at me, then at Shen Yuchu, who was taking small bites of her soup dumplings with a look of pure happiness. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Are they a good match? The question was like a blade driven straight into her proud heart. The man before her was handsome, unimaginably wealthy, and powerful enough to shake the world. Yet he was willing to stand in a kitchen and make food for an ordinary girl with his own hands. The affection in his eyes was a kind of tenderness she had never seen before. And the girl beside him wore simple clothes, but her smile was clean, her gaze clear, and every inch of her seemed wrapped in the happiness of being loved. Together, they looked like a peaceful, beautiful picture. And Xiao Wanqing? She sat there in an expensive suit, holding a thick proposal, looking like a clown begging this man for the smallest bit of mercy. There had once been a time when she stood before him and used a condescending tone to tell him to get out of her world. Now the tables had turned. The irony and regret washed over her like a tide. Her pride, her reason, everything she relied on shattered completely in that moment. Finally she spoke, her voice hoarse and unfamiliar. You two suit each other very well. Is that so? I smiled. Because I remember someone once saying I was useless. a parasite, that I wasn't worthy of her. The last trace of color drained from Xiao Wanqing's face. She knew I was humiliating her by giving her own words back exactly as she had once said them. Ning Yi, I admit it. I was blind back then. She closed her eyes, as though using every ounce of strength she had. I apologize to you. But business is business. This partnership is truly important to the Xiao Group. I'm begging you. Begging me? I interrupted. President Xiao, what are you begging me as? My former fiancée? Or someone I defeated? Shen Yuchu didn't fully understand what was happening, but she was smart enough not to interrupt. Instead, she quietly placed a soup dumpling into my bowl and looked at me with those clear eyes, silently supporting me. That tiny gesture destroyed Xiao Wanqing's final line of defense. She saw the wordless understanding between us, the intimacy that had become part of us. It was something she would never have. She had always believed she was chasing the peak of success and supreme power, but only now did she realize how empty and cold her heart was when she stood at the top, looking down at everyone else. She had won the whole world, but she had lost the one person who might have warmed it. Ning Yi, she said again, her voice starting to crack. I'm begging you. Please, she cried. Xiao Wanqing, the woman who had always stood high above everyone else, cold as ice, was actually crying. Tears slid down her flawless cheeks and fell onto the proposal she had once been so proud of, leaving dark water stains across the paper. I watched her quietly. There was no satisfaction in my heart, only silence. In my previous life, I might have softened because of her tears, but not now. I picked up the proposal without even looking at it and tossed it directly into the trash can beside me. President Xiao! I stood up and looked down at her. Let me give you one more piece of advice. I have no interest in acquiring a company that's about to go bankrupt, especially when you're the one running it. After that, I didn't look at her again. I took Shen Yuchu's hand and led her back into the kitchen. Behind us came the sound of Xiao Wanqing's suppressed, broken sobs. I knew that from that day onward, I had crushed this woman's pride with my own hands, and this was only the beginning. Xiao Wanqing left in a daze. I didn't pay attention to what happened to her afterward, because someone even more disgusting came looking for me. Li Lan, my biological mother. Somehow, she found out about Shen Yuchu's dessert shop and came directly to block the entrance. 10 years had passed, and she had aged a lot. The woman who had once still possessed a bit of charm now had wrinkles around her eyes, streaks of gray in her hair, and cheap market clothes on her body. Her face was full of bitterness and calculation. One look was enough to tell that she and Zhao Qiang hadn't lived well over the years. In my previous life, they had wasted my father's money like it would never run out. Then Zhao Qiang developed a gambling habit, and quickly gambled away the entire family fortune. Without my father's money in this life, they had probably struggled even more. The moment she saw me, she rushed over, trying to hug me as she had 10 years ago. I calmly stepped aside. Xiao Yi, my son, Mom finally found you. She immediately started her tearful performance again. If you have something to say it, I said coldly. If not, leave. Xiao Yi, how can you speak to your mother like that? I know you still blame me, but I had my reasons back then. Your Uncle Zhao and I have suffered so much these past few years. His business partners tricked him, and now we're drowning in debt. We can barely afford food. Xiao Yi, you've made something of yourself now. You can't just abandon your mother. She wiped her tears as she poured out one miserable story after another. Then she started lowering herself as if she was about to kneel. I frowned. Shen Yuchu came out of the shop, looking confused when she saw the scene. Ning Yi, who is this? Someone who has nothing to do with me. I moved Shen Yuchu behind me. I didn't want her getting dragged into something this ugly. Li Lan screamed and pointed at Shen Yuchu. How do I have nothing to do with you? I'm his mother. His real mother. And who are you? Some little seductress trying to steal my son for our family's money? Shen Yuchu's face turned pale. My expression darkened completely. I spoke one word at a time, my voice cold as ice. I'll say it again. Get out. I'm not leaving. Ning Yi, you have to give me money today. 1 million? No, 10 million. Otherwise I'll stay here and never leave. I'll sue you too. I'll sue you for abandoning your mother. Li Lan began throwing a tantrum. She thought I was still the soft, obedient child she could manipulate however she wanted. She thought I cared about my reputation and what other people thought. She was wrong. Looking at her ugly face, I suddenly smiled. Fine, I said. You want to sue me? I'll give you the chance. I took out my phone and called Old Wu again. Old Wu, contact the best legal team in the capital, and contact several of the biggest media outlets. I'm holding a press conference. The theme will be me and my biological mother settling the score for everything that happened over the years. Li Lan froze. She clearly hadn't expected that not only would I refuse to be threatened, I would make the whole thing bigger. You wouldn't dare, she said, sounding less confident now. Want to find out? I put away my phone and laughed coldly. Li Lan, have you forgotten what choice I made 10 years ago? 10 years ago, I chose money over you. 10 years later, I can still ruin you just to get some peace and quiet. Don't you love acting? I'll build you a bigger stage. You can perform to your heart's content." I looked at her like she was already dead. Leland started trembling all over. At last, she realized that the son standing before her was no longer someone she could control. He was a demon colder and more ruthless than she was. She pointed at me and stuttered for a long time, but in the end, she couldn't handle the crushing pressure. She ran away in humiliation. At last, things were quiet again. "Ning Yi," Shen Yuchu held my hand worriedly. "Was she really your mom?" "She used to be." I turned her hand over, kissed it softly, and said, "She isn't anymore. From now on, you're my only family." Shen Yuchu looked at me, tears of heartache gathering in her eyes. She didn't ask anything else. She just stood on tiptoe and gave me a warm hug. "Don't be scared," she whispered. "You have me now." As I held her, I could feel the shadows left behind by my previous life slowly being chased away by her warmth. Yeah, I had her. That was enough. I thought Lilan would finally give up after I scared her away, but I had still underestimated how shameless she could be. A few days later, the internet was suddenly flooded with damaging stories about me. Mysterious tycoon Ning Yi is a modern-day heartless scumbag, rejects wealthy heiress, abandons his own mother. Shocking expose. Billionaire built his fortune by exploiting his biological mother. Mother's tearful accusation, my son was stolen by a seductress. Post after post painted me as an ungrateful, money-loving traitor who had been seduced by beauty and abandoned the mother who raised him. Lilan became a pitiful mother who had struggled all her life, only to be cast aside by her son. And Shen Yuchu naturally became the seductress who had destroyed the relationship between mother and son. There were even secretly taken photos of Shen Yuchu and me eating at small street-side restaurants. For a while, public opinion exploded. Countless people who didn't know the truth were stirred up by those emotional posts and began viciously attacking me online. For the first time, my name hit the trending topics in this way. Some extreme internet users even found Shen Yuchu's dessert shop. They splashed paint outside, threw garbage at the entrance, and screamed that she was a shameless mistress. Shen Yuchu was terrified. For several days, she didn't dare open the shop. She hid in my arms and cried like her heart was breaking. I held her, feeling more heartbroken than I could put into words. "Ning Yi, I didn't do anything. I'm not some seductress. I know you're not. Don't be afraid. I'm here." The killing intent in my eyes had never been stronger. "Li Lan, Zhao Qiang, you really pushed me too far. I had originally planned to let you rot on your own, but you had to come after the person I cared about most. So don't blame me for being ruthless." I asked Old Wu to investigate. The results came back quickly. Sure enough, Li Lan and Zhao Qiang were behind everything. They had hired some third-rate marketing company, paid online trolls, and staged the entire drama themselves. But what surprised me even more was that Xiao Wanqing's shadow was behind the matter too. She hadn't participated directly, but the public relations company under her control had helped fuel the online attack. Fine. Very fine. One was my shameless biological mother. The other was my unwilling to let go former fiancé. Since you two liked joining forces, I would send you both straight to hell. I didn't rush to explain myself. I didn't take down the trending posts either. I let public opinion continue fermenting. The higher they stood, the harder they would fall. 3 days later, just as the online condemnation of me reached its peak, I held the press conference I had prepared for Lilan. The venue was the largest ballroom in the capital's most luxurious 7-star hotel. I invited more than 100 major media outlets from across the country. The scale was unprecedented. Lilan was invited too. She probably thought I was finally going to surrender and pay her to make the matter disappear. She had a smug smile on her face. Xiao Wanqing came as well. She sat in an inconspicuous corner, wanting to see how I would clean up this mess. I walked onto the stage in a perfectly tailored handmade suit, holding Shen Yuchu's hand. She was nervous. Her palms were damp with sweat. I gave her a reassuring smile. The camera flashes went off like crazy. I cleared my throat, looked at the endless microphones and cameras in front of me, and said my first sentence. "Hello everyone, I'm Ning Yi. I invited you here today because I want to tell you a story about a choice." I told them everything that happened when I was 10 years old. From my father's will, to Lilan's threat, to the choice I ultimately made. I spoke calmly, without even the slightest emotion, as though I were telling a story that had nothing to do with me. But the entire hall fell silent. Every reporter was stunned. They probably never imagined that the truth would turn out to be such a shocking reversal. Lilan's face went white instantly. She tried to rush onto the stage to deny it, but the bodyguards I had arranged held her down. Of course, words alone aren't proof. I snapped my fingers. The giant screen behind me lit up. A recording began to play. It was Lilan's threat, whispered into my ear at the funeral hall 10 years ago. "Ning Yi, if you dare say anything stupid, I'll beat you to death. You're my son. Your money is my money." Her voice was perfectly clear. I had asked Lawyer Joe to retrieve it from the recorder he carried back then. My father had always been cautious, and Lawyer Joe had recorded all the conversations at the funeral just in case. No one expected it would come in useful today. The moment the recording played, the room erupted. Every camera turned toward Li Lan, whose face had become gray with despair. "It's fake!" she screamed wildly. "It's edited! It's fake!" "Fake?" I said. "Then is this fake too?" The screen changed. A video began playing. It showed Lilan and Zhao Qiang celebrating at an expensive restaurant less than a month after my father died. "Lanlin, I told you. That kid's an idiot. He was definitely going to choose you. He's my son. Of course I know him. Once we get that 200 million, we'll travel around the world. Come on. Here's to our wonderful future." In the video, both of them smiled brightly. It was disgusting to watch. I had old Wu use special methods to recover the footage from that restaurant's old surveillance system. The evidence was overwhelming. Lilan could no longer deny anything. She collapsed onto the floor like a pile of mud. But it wasn't over. "Not yet," I said coldly. More evidence appeared on the screen. Zhao Qiang's gambling debts. Records of them selling my father's belongings. Statements from neighbors describing how they had abused me when I was young. One horrifying piece of evidence after another. The so-called loving mother. The so-called reasons and hardships. Faced with hard evidence, it all became the biggest joke in the world. The entire press conference turned into a public execution of Lilan and Zhao Qiang, and from beginning to end, I was only a calm observer. Finally, the screen stopped on a document. Declaration of severance of mother-son relationship. I picked up the microphone. "I, Ning Yi, hereby formally announce," my voice spread through the entire hall. "From today onward, I sever all ties with Ms. Lilan. Whether in life or death, marriage or funerals, we will have nothing to do with each other." Then I paused and looked toward Xiao Wanqing in the corner. "As for every individual and organization that maliciously spread rumors and slandered me and my fiancée, Ms. Shen Yu Chu, my legal team will pursue full legal responsibility. This includes the public relations company under the Xiao Group." Xiao Wanqing's body shook. She looked up and met my icy gaze, every bit of color drained from her face. She knew I was declaring war on her, and she knew she had lost. Completely. The press conference became the headline story for every major outlet that night. Public opinion reversed instantly. One trending topic after another exploded across the internet. Lilan and Zhao Qiang became public enemies, condemned everywhere they went. They not only had to face public outrage, but legal punishment as well. Fraud, child abuse, fabricating evidence. There was enough to keep them in prison for the rest of their lives. The Xiao Group was dragged down too. Its stock price dropped by 30% overnight, putting it on the brink of collapse. Xiao Wanqing was overwhelmed, begging for help everywhere, only to find every door closed in her face. No one dare defend me at a time like that. At last, she learned what it felt like to be abandoned by everyone and surrounded on all sides. A few days later, I got a call from someone unexpected. Xiao Wanqing. Her voice was no longer cold. It was exhausted and hoarse. "Ning Yi, I lost." That was the first thing she said. "I'm not calling to ask you to spare me. I just want to ask you one question." "Go ahead." "If I hadn't broken off the engagement back then, would you have—" "No." I cut her off without hesitation. "Xiao Wanqing, you were never part of my world, and you never could have been, because you never understood me. You only saw what you assumed was there, and what you liked was only the kind of strong man you imagined. But from the beginning, all I wanted was to be an ordinary man who cooked for the person he loved." There was a long silence on the other end. Then I heard a soft sound, almost like something breaking. "I understand." She hung up. I knew she would never call to disturb me again. Maybe she would rebuild her business empire in her own way. But her world would always be missing one piece of the puzzle, the piece called happiness. As for me, I had already found mine. I turned off my phone and walked into the kitchen. Shen Yu Chu was wearing the Winnie the Pooh apron I had bought her. She was humming while clumsily trying to wrap dumplings, flour all over her face. When she saw me walk in, she gave me a huge smile. "Lazy landlord, come help me. Your head chef wants 3 delicacy dumplings today." Sunlight streamed through the window and fell across her adorable face. Everything felt warm and beautiful. I walked over, hugged her from behind, and kissed her flower-covered nose. "At your command, Your Majesty." Wealth, revenge, all those things suddenly didn't seem important anymore. All I wanted was to hold the girl in front of me, cook for her for the rest of my life, and watch her smile for the rest of my life. After being reborn, I used 200 million to cut myself free from my past. But in the end, what I won back was an entire world. A world with her in it.